Hi, everyone. I'm Rohit. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Stilt. We provide financial services for immigrants. And today I have Sara with us. Sara is the co-founder and chief operating officer of Legalpad. Legalpad makes it faster and easier for startup founders and teams to get US work visas. And she will be helping us answer a lot of questions that are on every visa holder's mind given the current crisis. Today, we are going to discuss how H1B visa holders are getting impacted by layoffs and the various options that they have to stay in the country during this crisis. Cool. Sara, why don't you get us started and tell us a little bit about what you are seeing in terms of H1B visa holders getting laid off?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Sara, as Rohit mentioned. And what our team is seeing is it should be of no surprise to anyone. There are a lot of economic circumstances that have resulted in people being laid off from their companies. And it's not just limited to startups. We're actually fielding a lot of questions from people who are coming from bigger companies as well, who have had to downsize as a result of the economic crisis that has come with COVID. So I'm here to just kind of discuss the basics of what that could mean for you, for your family, and also what steps you can take to kind of mitigate any stress that could result from the layoffs, because layoffs are already stressful enough as it is.
Right, totally. And we should also mention that anything we discuss in this conversation should not be considered legal advice. So people should still talk to their lawyer based on their circumstances and figure out what is the right option for them. And we'll just be discussing what are the most common things that Legalpad is seeing and helping people through.
Sure.
Cool. So first, let's talk about people who have just recently been laid off by their company, and they have a 2-week notice, or they have a severance, or maybe not. What options do those people have if they
Right.
are just laid off?
So it depends on what type of visa that you have. So initially, by answering this question, I'm going to start with the H1B because it seems to be the most popular. So while you're in the US on an H1B, one of the requirements of having H1B status is that you need to be employed. So once you are laid off from a job, that already affects your visa status in the sense that you are no longer working for a US company. There is some relief though. Many people do have something called like a 60-day grace period that's available to them after getting laid off. During this time, you're able to stay in the US and look for another job. You'll basically be able to interview, you can take meetings with people, and that's perfectly within the realm of what the H1B 60-day grace period is for. However, there are a few restrictions. So, beyond the 60 days, like we know that COVID has kind of lasted a little bit longer than we had realized. So after the 60 days is over, unfortunately, you will need to leave the US once your status is up, because that grace period does run out. That being said, we've also been getting a lot of questions from people who are asking if they can transition to a B1 status. So the B1 is the business visitor visa, and you can do things like come to the US and do interviews, meet with customers, just overall kind of business activities that are temporary in nature, like taking meetings, right? So anything that you could have an itinerary for. So many people have been asking about whether or not they could transition from an H1B status to a B1 status. So it's a little bit tricky because there may be a few challenges that you could face when doing this. So the B1 is a tourist classification, and that means that there must be an intent to enter the US for a temporary trip and then depart the US. So USCIS, so US Citizenship and Immigration Services, could find the intent problematic when you're filing from an H1B or any other more long-term work visa to a B1 or a B2. If you're currently working and living in the US, like USCIS may question whether the request to transition from an H1B to a B1 would be classified, like whether the classification of you being a tourist is legitimate. So for example, like, would you have plans to depart the US after the tourist trip? That's
Right.
unclear.